Today I wanted to open one of the commander decks from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. It's the green-white Coven counters deck. So they have a couple of these little things you can pop out to use as counters or victory confetti. So like a lot of the commander boxes I've opened recently, it comes with a box to hold your cards. And then it actually has a little cardboard thing within here, so it looks like it can hold more than your 100 card commander deck, but I don't know if that's partially to give you some extra room for the sleeves, because I don't think the sleeves would take up that much extra space. So like a lot of the commander decks, the color combination is dependent on the commander. So if the commander is green-white in this case, you can only have green and white cards. There's going to be legendary creatures in here that are just green, or legendary creatures that are just white, and you really couldn't use those as the commanders, because then it would have to be a straight up green deck or a straight up white deck, depending on which color or where. But the foil legendary creature that it has as one of the suggested commanders is Leonor Autumn Sovereign. It's a 0/4 human noble for 2, a forest and a plains. Has Coven. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 counter on up to one target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. Then another foil potential commander is Kyler Sigardian Emissary. It's a 2/2 human cleric for 3, a forest and a plains. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Kyle or Sigardian Emissary. Other humans you control get +1/+1 for each counter on Kyler. So that's kind of cool. It basically pumps this creature up for every human entering the battlefield, and then each of those humans that are on the battlefield get 1/1 for each counter on this guy. It sort of reminds me of the Archangel of Thune, only it's more, as far as giving counters, but it's only specific to a one creature type as opposed to all your creatures on the battlefield. But Thune is whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on all creatures you control. So like in a life gain deck, Thune just pumps up all your creatures, and then any of your creatures that have lifelink, then you gain life on attacking or blocking and pump everyone up more. Dawnheart Wardens. It's a 3/3 human warlock that costs 1, a forest in the plains, has vigilance, and Coven. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Moonsilver Key. It's an artifact that costs 2. You can pay 1 and tap, sacrifice Moonsilver Key, search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability or basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So you're searching for a mana ability, artifact, or a basic land. So it's I really could go either way on search cards. It's allows you to thin your deck, which is a good thing, but it almost feels like a wasted slot because you're using a card to search out another card. So I really could go either way. Depending on your deck, it could be helpful or it could be a wasted slot. Absent Falconer. It's a 2/3 human soldier that costs 2 in the plains. Outlast, which costs the plains. And then in parentheses it explains plains, tap, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Outlast only as a sorcery. Each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has flying. So that's sort of cool because then you could, you have a couple of, you have the one potential commander that puts a 1/1 counter on itself and each human you control. And then we have Innistrad Bonkin. This one has another Outlast ability, but it's Outlast cost is 1 in the plains. So 1 in the plains, tap this guy, put a 1/1 creature on this creature. Outlast only as a sorcery. Each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has first strike. So if you have these creatures out, you would be getting creatures with 1/1 counters on it, and then all your creatures with 1/1 counters would happen to have flying in first strike. Kind of an interesting way of giving abilities. Instead of having an enchantment, you have, a creature, but then the creature is giving other creatures stuff depending on, if criteria is met. So, enchantments almost feel like they take away from a creature spot, so that sort of is a creative way of getting around that. Obviously, there's creature destruction in the same way there's enchantment and destruction, so could go either way on that. Elite Scale Guard. It's a 2/3 human soldier for 4 in the plains. While Elite Scale Guard enters, when Elite Scale Guard enters the battlefield, bolster 2. Choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put 2 1/1 counters on it. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. Where this deck's all around 1/1 counters, it seems like attacking with creatures was 1/1 counters. Was this guy in the battlefield? You're tapping your opponent's creatures. Well, one for each of your creatures that has a 1/1 counter that's attacking. But still, that's very helpful. If your opponent has more creatures than you. Orzhov Advocist. It's a 1/4 human advisor for 2 in the planes. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2 1/1 counters on a creature they control. If a player does, creatures that player controls can attack you or a planeswalker you control until your next turn. So, kind of a double-edged sword. You're allowing your opponents to put 1/1 counters on a creature they control, but then your opponent can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. Return to Dust. It's an instant for 2 and 2 planes. Exile a target artifact or enchantment. If you cast a spell during your main phase, you may exile up to 1 other target artifact or enchantment. So, you're not just destroying it, you're exiling it, and if you're doing it on your turn, you can do 2 artifacts or enchantments instead of just 1. So it really comes down to threat level, if mana, do you save that for to potentially use it on your opponent's turn and only deal with 1 artifact or enchantment? Do you do it on your turn to do 2 and then not be able to do something else depending on how much or little mana you have? Swords to Plowshare. It's an instant that costs a single planes. Exile a target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. So, obviously helpful because it not only gets rid of a creature, but where it's exiling it, your opponent can't bring it back from their graveyard. Downside, obviously your opponent's getting life off that, but you don't have to deal with that creature again. Of Vakkin's Pilgrim, the Vakkins, probably saying that wrong. It's a 1/1 human monk for a forest, and it's a mana dork in the sense that it's a creature that can tap for mana. So you can tap for planes. So, kind of ironic, creature that costs a forest producing a planes, but this is a green-white deck, so, they sometimes do that. Beast Within. It's an instant for 2 in a forest. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 beast creature token. Bestial Menace. It's a sorcery for 3 and 2 forest. Create a 1/1 snake creature token, a 2/2 wolf creature token, and a 3/3 green elephant token. I sort of remember having this in one of my decks that was heavy on creatures and or creature tokens. It's a high mana cost, because convert mana cost is 5, but you're getting 3 creature tokens for the cost for 5. Biogenic Upgrade. This one seems sort of familiar too. It's a sorcery that costs 4 and 2 forest. Distribute 3 1/1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 creatures. Then double the number of 1/1 counters on each of those creatures. So any creature that already has 1/1 counters on it, if you're adding more 1/1 counters on it, the double obviously stacks. So if a creature has, well, you can do it on 1, 2, or 3 different creatures. So let's say a creature, you have 3 creatures with 2 1/1 counters on it. Slap a 1/1 counter on each of those, so then each of those 3 have 3 1/1 counters. You double it. Now you have 3 creatures that have 6 1/1 counters. That gets interesting fast. Or, maybe you just want to slap all 3 on a creature. So, you put 3 1/1 counters on someone that already has 2. 2 goes up to 5, and then 5 doubles to 10. Many different possibilities. Gets entertaining. 6 converted mana cost, so costs a lot, but does do a lot to, Eternal Witness. It's a 2/1 human shaman for 1 and 2 forest. When an Eternal Witness enters the battlefield, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Gross Spasm. It's a sorcery for 2 in the forest. Search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token. It has sacrifice this creature, add a colorless mana. So, 3 may seem like, an okay amount to search for a land, but you're also getting a 0/1 creature, so it could either be a trivial blocker to for something that doesn't have trample, or the 0/1 also can be sacrificed for mana. So kind of cool card for potentially 2 additional mana on your next turn. Inspiring Call. It's an instant for 2 in the forest. Draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Yavimaya Elder. It's a 2/1 human druid for 1 and 2 forest. When Yamamaya Elder dies, you may search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, then put them into your hand, then shuffle. And you can pay 2 to sacrifice Yavima Elder and draw a card. So, a 2/1 might not seem like much, but you can either block one of your opponent's attacking creatures to draw to search for those 2 land cards, or you can pay 2 to sacrifice them, draw a card, and also search for those 2 land cards. So kind of one of those guys you can have a creature or get rid of them, it doesn't really matter. Next we have Enduring Scalelord. It's a 4/4 dragon for 4 in a forest in the plains. Where it's a dragon, seems kind of obvious I would have flying. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on another creature you control, you may put a 1/1 counter on Enduring Scalelord. So that's really cool. It could go in any deck really that's deals with 1/1 counters, and any that has green white in it. Juniper Order Ranger. It's a 2/4 human knight for 3 in Forest in the Plains. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on that creature and a 1/1 counter on Juniper Order Ranger. So that's pretty cool. You're putting 1/1 counters on this guy and on a creature entering the battlefield, and it doesn't specify like a specific creature type. It's like all creatures, so it's better than that like commander that only dealt with humans for putting 1/1 counters. So here's another one that seems kind of familiar to me. Tristani's Summoner. It's a 1/1 Elf Shaman for 5, a Forest in the Plains. When Tristani's Summoner enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 White Knight creature token with Vigilance, a 3/3 green Centaur creature token, and a 4/4 green Rhino creature token with Trample. So 7 convert mana cost might seem high for a 1/1, but it's not when you consider the fact that it's putting 3 creature tokens on the battlefield when, this particular 1/1 enters the battlefield. And, it's a 2/2, a 3/3, 4/4. The 2/2 adds Vigilance, the 4/4 has Trample, so you're getting 4 creatures for 7 mana. And if you have some way to, like, bounce this in and out, if you can be like, exile until your end step and then it returns to battlefield, something like that, you bounce it out, comes back, you get another 2/2 Knight, 3/3 Centaur, 4/4 Rhino. That could get real broken real quick if you have a way of bouncing it in and out multiple times. Arcane Signet. It's an artifact that costs 2 and it allows you to tap for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So something that would seem fairly common in a commander deck, something to, other than a land that would allow you to tap for mana. Soul Ring, I've said in other commander deck videos, seems like a staple for any commander deck. It's an artifact that costs 1 and it taps taps to add 2 colorless mana. So, that's pretty clutch. Pay 1 to get 2 mana. Swiftfoot Boots. It's an artifact equipment. You pay 2 to play it onto the battlefield and 1 to equip it to a creature. You don't have to equip it the same turn you play it, but if you have the mana and the creature to equip it to, you can. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. So, if you happen to have this on the battlefield, you play a creature, oh hey, I have 1 free mana. I'm going to equip this creature, or equip this to the creature I just played. Oh, it gets haste now. I can attack with it if I want. And where it has hexproof, the opponent wouldn't be able to target that creature you're equipping this to. So at that point, it would just come down to the stack. Can you equip this, without your opponent adding a kill spell to the stack to, kill your creature. Talisman of Unity. It's an artifact that costs 2. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can tap it for a forest or a plains. Talisman of Unity deals 1 damage to you. So, obviously, a lot of the cards are going to have a number in it, which would be, could be colorless or any color. But then this is a green-white deck, so, it has, the second ability to tap for green or white at the cost of, 1 life. Blighted Woodland. It's a land that taps for a colorless mana, or you can pay 3 a forest, tap to sacrifice Blighted Woodland. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So, kind of like, what is it, Evolving Wilds or whatever, only you're paying a little bit more mana to search for a second land card. You're, searching for 2 basic lands instead of 1. Commander Tower, so White Soul Ring, kind of a staple for most any commander deck. Seen it in pretty much all the commander decks I remember opening. It's a land that taps for 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. Croson Verge. It's a land. Croson Verge enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can pay 2, tap, and sacrifice Croson Verge. Search your library for a forest card and a plains card, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So you're paying 2 to get 2 basic lands, and it specifies which kind of land, so you're getting 1 forest, 1 plains, which kind of helps with mana fixing if, you need 1 of each to be able to play your commander, but you only have green mana or you only have white mana. It kind of searches out for 1 of each, and then I've already said it before, I could go either way on cards that you're searching for stuff in your library. Helpful for thinning the deck, yes. Obviously, it has a point in searching for stuff. Almost feels like a wasted slot, but it has its point. It has its reasons, so I get it. Myriad Landscape. It's a land. Myriad Landscape enters the battlefield tapped. Tap to add a colorless, or pay 2, tap, sacrifice Myriad Landscape. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards that share a land type, put them on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. So, kind of similar idea as the last card, only instead of 1 of each, this could be 2 of the same color. Passive Ancestry. I feel like I've seen this in a couple of different commander decks, but I don't know if that's necessarily been all of them or not. Passive Ancestry enters the battlefield tapped. Add 1 mana of any color into your commander's identity. When the mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. Celestial Judgment. It's a sorcery for 4 and 2 planes. For for each different power among creatures on the battlefield, choose a creature with that power. Destroy each creature not chosen this way. So it's basically a board wipe that allows you to basically keep certain creatures. And where, like, you had the two cards earlier that, like, one was like all creatures was 1/1, counters have flying, and one that was like all creatures was 1/1 counters have first strike. You could, if both of them were on the battlefield, you could say, okay, I'm choosing one that has flying because, you know, it gives flying to all the 1/1 counters. One that has first strike that's different than the one you just chose because all the creatures have 1/1 counters. So you save two creatures, you know, because they're two different powers, and then, hey, everything else goes away. Kind of have to hope your opponent doesn't have hexproof for his creatures, or, you know, a counter spell, because obviously, you know, 6 mana seems reasonable for a board wipe that lets you keep your, you know, some of your creatures, but at the same time, 6 mana is a lot of mana to spend to then potentially have the card countered. So you have to, like, see how much open mana your opponents have and gauge whether you think they're gonna have a counter or not. Curse of Conformity. It's a enchanted aura curse for 4 and a plains enchant player. Non-legendary creatures enchanted player control has base power and toughness of 3/3 and lose all creature types. So it doesn't say anything about losing, you know, any of the creature's abilities. It just says and loses all creature types. So I guess it would force the person to not be able to gain any benefit off, like, having humans enter the battlefield or having dragons enter the battlefield or whatever. Like, you might not get some of the benefits off certain triggers, but you would also, I don't know, cool in a way that, you know, the creature's base power and toughness is 3/3, so any, you know, 10/10, 7/7s, any big guy your opponent has, all of a sudden, yeah, they're 3/3 now. 3/3s now. Mourning Rescuer. It's a 4/4 human knight. When Mourning Rescuer dies, return any number of other creature cards with total power of X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is Mourning Rescuer's power. Exile Mourning Rescuer. So, kind of a cool guy because it's a 4/4, so decent mid-range power toughness. If it dies, you're getting creatures back from the graveyard to the battlefield. Downside to returning stuff from the graveyard to the battlefield is you're, you know, exiling this guy in the process. But, you know, if you end up grabbing a couple of 2/2s or whatever, you know, or if this guy gets some more 1/1 counters on him and maybe his power is 10 when he, you know, dies, maybe you get, you know, 5 2/2s, or you could get 3 3/3s and a 1/1, or, you know, some combination that you're getting as many creatures as you can, and or a couple of big creatures. Sigard does Vanguard. It's a 3/3 angel, has flash. Seems sort of obvious where it's an angel that gets flying. Whenever Sigard's Vanguard enters the battlefield or attacks, choose any number of creatures with different powers. Those creatures gain double strike until end of turn. Stalwarter's Pathlighter. It's a 3/1 human soldier for 2 in the plains. Has vigilance. Coven. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Which is kind of nice that, you can avoid lethal damage as long as as long as it's not being done in -1/-1 counters. Wall of Mourning. It's a 0/4 wall, obviously from the name of the card. That costs 1 in the plains. Has Defender, which back originally when Magic started, walls, I think, had worded walls can't attack, which seemed to make sense. And now Defender is a catch-all ability or keyword that kind of describes how it was worded out. It takes a few words of a description and condenses it to the one key term. When Wall of Mourning enters the battlefield, exile a card from the top of your library face down for each opponent you have. Coven. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, put a card exiled with Wall of Mourning into its owner's hand. So that's an interesting way of potentially drawing a card by exiling some cards to face down to then draw them, but only if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers. So it's a creative way of trying to draw cards, I guess. So where I still have a lot of the deck to go through, I'm gonna break this up into 2 or 3 videos, so check back later to see the rest of this deck. If you haven't subscribed already, maybe consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you can see when new and interesting videos get uploaded. Thanks, and have a good day.